I'm calling the meeting to order, and I'm glad to see everyone here on a regular meeting. And I ask our city clerk to call the roll, please.
Councilmember Terry?
Here.
Councilmember Budge? Here. Councilmember Gatewood is absent. Vice Mayor Sander?
Here.
Mayor McGarvey?
Here, thank you. I ask the city clerk to announce the meeting video recording and playback schedules, please.
The meeting of the Rancho Cordova City Council will be cablecast on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel on Comcast, Consolidated Communications, and AT&T Uverse. The meeting is closed captioned and webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. Today's meeting will air Thursday, March 7th at 9 a.m. and Friday, March 8th at 6 p.m. on Channel 14. A DVD copy is available for checkout from any library branch. A copy can also be ordered from the city clerk's department, and a webcast of this meeting will also be available on the city's website within 48 hours of adjournment of this meeting.
Very good, thank you. Okay, I'm going to ask Larry Ladd to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and then I'm going to invite the audience to remain standing. Sister Workman from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, will give the invocation.
Everybody, face the flag behind Mayor McGarvey and repeat after me. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, we humbly gather together this evening in gratitude for the land in which we live and for the freedoms that we have. Father, we pray that thy Spirit will be in attendance in this meeting and that all things that are discussed will be guided according to thy will. We are grateful for the leaders of this nation and for the community in which we live, and we love thee so very much, Father, and we say these things in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you very much. On to the presentations. I'm going to introduce Jared Hayden, principal of Cordova High School, and Michelle Flower Wilson, principal of Kenny High School.
Thank you. I appreciate being here tonight. I know I was here most recently to accept a very generous check from the city, and whether it's reading at Mather Heights with Councilmember Budge or meeting with Vice Mayor Sander at Cordova High School, I'm very appreciative and grateful of the support from the city. I just want you all to know that there's something to be said to be the only high school, comprehensive high school in Rancho Cordova, and we definitely feel that support. And so I just wanted to take a minute to say that and let you know that I have a daughter and a son, and my family live here in Rancho Cordova. We have the same zip code as Cordova High School, and so I really, really am appreciative of the opportunity to lead that school and to make you proud. And I would say to any of you, if you are ever interested in coming onto campus, many of you have been there already, but if you'd like to come and walk classrooms or see some of the amazing programs we have to offer or pathways, I'd be more than happy to give you a tour personally. Because ultimately what we're trying to do is make sure that all of our kids graduate successful, either with content and the skills required to contribute and to give back. And we want to make sure that you're all proud of the students that graduate from Cordova. So I very much appreciate, again, the opportunity to be here, and our board member, Chris Clark, who's a huge supporter to Cordova as well. So thank you very much.
Take care of your babies.
Don't believe what she says
Yes.
about me. I just want to say that too.
So now is my time to talk about him. No, I'm slightly competitive, so I would really like to urge you to come see Kenny and Prospect first. I am very, very honored and excited to be the new principal of Kenny High School and Prospect Community Day School. My passion is working with students who have not found success yet in other settings. So that invitation is very sincere. I welcome you to come by anytime. You don't need to let me know, just stop by. Let me show you our campus, the great things that are happening, and, talk to our kids. I'm just super excited. As far as the big check that Jared mentioned, I do have some Measure H applications in, and I would love for your consideration in those because our kids deserve it. No, but I really am honored to be here. I'm excited to be a part of the Rancho Cordova community, and I just want to thank you for your time. So thank you very much.
What are you asking for?
I am asking, I would love to go to Hawaii. No, I'm just kidding. I am asking for a transportation vehicle to assist in our CTE competitions or field trips. Also, to help with attendance. We have a lot of students who, when it rains, they don't come for very good reason. And I would love to be able to pick them up. I also am.
You're asking for a van? I'm guessing?
Yes.
Okay.
A really cute van. If it was an Airstream and I could just pick them up in a trailer, that would be even better. But no, a passenger van is one request. And then also we have a request for a community garden and a community garden for Prospect, because I think that would be really valuable for them. So, and a mural. That the students would create. So we are a tiny little piece on Kilgore, but our kids are important and we need to prepare them for what's next. And I believe in them, and I'd love for you to come out and visit.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Because I haven't been able to visit that school, so I do want to take you up on that. You're saying Kenny and Prospect as if those are two different things in two different places, or?
No, so
Okay.
I am lucky enough to be the principal of two schools on the same campus. One is Kinney Continuation High School, and that is a school for students who might be deficient in credits, who want to come and have a smaller environment, reduction in credits. And then Prospect Community Day School is a school where students come as an opportunity to return to their original schools. So they're sent to us from attendance and due process, and they're sent on contracts, and they have to make review by having 90% attendance, no Fs, a C average, and good behavior. And so if they can do that, they can return to their original schools and hopefully flourish. So we have two very different schools on our campus. Great question. Thank you for asking.
Those are the students who used to go to Mather Youth Academy?
Yes, they were, that is exactly true. I believe it was, and I am new, so my timeline, and I have to apologize, I'm right in the middle of a WASC accreditation visit, so it's been, WASC is Western
spending some time
Association
with
of
us,
Schools and Colleges. But it was Mather Youth Academy, and I think they came to Kilgore 3 to 4 years ago, and it has since changed with the addition of PBIS with the district focus. It's a lot different than it was previously, but that is the same program.
Interestingly, some of us actually participated in your accreditation a good 10 or some odd years ago. And I just found the brochure, the booklet that was put together for that.
Excellent. Well, tomorrow at 1:30, if you're interested and have nothing else on your calendar, they are meeting with district and community members. And I do want to brag, before I came on board, we did also qualify for the Model Continuation High School program, which they're going to be celebrated in Anaheim in April. And that is a very, very huge honor.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
What kind of academies do you have in your CTE program?
We have a culinary pathway, and then we have a welding and machining pathway. I am amazed at our culinary kitchen. Our teaching kitchen is fabulous. They also do catering if you ever need catering for any events. And then our welding and machining, our manufacturing, shop is, we're lucky enough to purchase about $40,000 worth of equipment, not from the site funds, that is CTE dollars, so I don't want you to think we could have bought a van with that. But it is high tech. We are putting people right into jobs in the local community. Our teacher, Richard Smith, has been at our school for 30 years, and he is very well networked in the community, and he is putting people, our students, in jobs.
Your teacher and his program and his success are very well known, especially from the time that that engine went to Cal Expo and won an
Oh,
award.
yes. I love the engine. When I saw the job opening, I actually went to the campus and I was shocked at how beautiful it was. And then I saw the engine and I was like, this clearly has a story. I need to learn the story, and it's a good one.
Super, thank you.
Any other questions? Please come visit us. Okay, thank you for your time. Have a great night.
Thank you.
I
Thank
would
you
just
very much.
comment, having worked with both principals who are here, this council, you guys are new, which is why you're appearing here at the podium. This council is extraordinarily committed to education. Not normal for a city council probably in California, but we recognize it as being core to the future health of our community. And so we are going out of our way and above normal bounds to try to find ways to support, innovation, and to fill the gaps that many of our kids have in their home lives the best we can with resources from City Hall or partnerships that we can help you arrange, things like that. So always, when you see one of those challenges erupt and you can't deal with it within the school district, think about the city. And not only dollars from us through Measure H, that's probably the easiest approach, but partnerships that we might be able to help you arrange. Always consider that, because we want to be a place that you can come to get the resources that you can't find elsewhere.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you, guys.
All right. I'm glad you were here tonight.
Yeah, rest up for your walk.
All right. Okay, next I'm going to ask Virginia Perez, who is Tenant Housing Advisor on the next presentation, 9.2. Yes, hello.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for having me here to present Renters Helpline and share the wonderful service that that we provide. So these are our funders: the City of Sacramento, the County of Sacramento, the City of Citrus Heights, City of Elk Grove, and City of Rancho Cordova. We do not service Yellow or Placer. And who we partner with. So the Renters Helpline partners with Project Sentinel, which is on my right or your left, depending on where you're sitting. And whenever we do an intake and it's a fair housing issue, discrimination of race, origin, those types of housing discrimination issues, we pass that on to Project Sentinel, who investigates those cases. Legal Services of Northern California is where we refer some tenants when they need legal advice, where there's something that we can't answer. Of course, Sacramento Self-Help is also, we're a branch of the organization. And CAA stands for California Apartment Association. This is where we send owners of properties or property managers that call in with questions that are not so black and white, where they need a little more help making sure that they don't break the law. And that's where our tenant advisors and myself get training on laws pertaining to tenant landlord issues. And what we provide, education, we educate tenants on their rights and their responsibilities. What does that mean? So when tenants call in, the three top concerns are rent increases, evictions, and repairs. So that's where the rights and responsibilities come in, to educate them on what can they do, what to expect, and those types of, that type of guidance. Also referrals to, like I said previously, legal services. Offers tenant-landlord dispute resolutions. Sometimes there is a disconnect between the tenant and the landlord. It could be just a language barrier, and so we can help call the manager and try and work something out. So we do provide that type of service, and we've been very successful, I must add. Provide referral and resources for legal assistance. Again, we don't just refer them out to legal services because that is income-based, but we do have a referral sheet that McGeorge is another place where we refer people. There's other legal services that we refer people depending on, it's on a case-by-case basis. Identifies housing discrimination cases and refers to Project Sentinel. Again, when it does come to fair housing, we let Project Sentinel take over those and investigate. There's two ways that they investigate those. They will either do surveys, what are called surveys. They will send people out to the apartment complex, or say if an owner has multiple properties, they'll go and ask the same questions to random residents and figure out if there's any substance to the tenant's accusation of whatever discrimination might be going on in that case. And then they also have testers, what are called testers. So you send two people and you see if that property manager is going to treat those people differently depending if it's a race type of case. Our services are free, both to the tenant and the landlord. We just implemented a multi-language service so that we can speak to anybody that speaks Russian, Ukraine, Darcy, Hindi. We can provide services to everyone in the community. Our outreach materials also come in 6 different languages. And we are open Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5 p.m. And we just wanted to share some of our goals and our totals. Specifically for the city of Rancho Cordova, we were aiming at 418. We exceeded that by, as you can see, 431. We'd like to get all our numbers higher. We want to really just get out the word to people that we're here. I always say, I hope you never have to call, but I'm grateful that the service is here for people to use.
Are these cases, calls?
Calls.
Calls. So one person could be responsible for multiple calls?
Yes.
So if I was having a problem as a tenant, I could call you 10 or 20 times, it would show up 10 or 20 times here as a,
Yes.
okay.
Yes. So, and things get complicated. So you get a call and you advise the tenant, and then something else happens. And so sometimes you do get people who call, in a month, 3, maybe 4 times, because something else happens, or they want to add something, or they forgot to say something. So that is common. Most of the calls that come into the renters helpline are from tenants. So you see the total numbers, 8,302 calls. Of those, only 780 are fair housing. Of those, only 249 are from owners or apartment managers. So you can see how it's mostly tenants calling in concerned about an issue that they're having. And again, I'm happy to see that we exceeded our goals. Yeah. And so the investigated, I just want to point out that you see how many calls were referred, 780, 98 of those were investigated. A lot of times people feel like they're being discriminated. Sometimes they are, but sometimes they feel like it's just not fair. And so that's why you see that big gap in numbers. But when somebody does feel like they're being discriminated, it's our job to take that information down and pass it down to Project Sentinel. Any other questions for me?
Well, I don't see any, but I'm thankful for the information you've given us. I had no idea we had the numbers like that.
Do you want to provide a phone number?
So there's our number. And I left a couple of my business cards on the table. I also saw that Marie took the liberty of making a copy of the PowerPoint and also on the table. Anything else?
Well, I think with the people who are here and those who'll be seeing this on TV and also seeing it on their computer, you'll probably get some more phone calls.
Like I said, I hope that you don't need to call, but I am grateful that this service is here, and anything you can do to get the word out is awesome. I love these events. I love to be out and spread the word about this wonderful service. It's free. Again, the multi-language line, so that if somebody doesn't speak English, they can still be helped.
Well, that's probably one of your most challenging things is the many languages that are, and I think, what, like 84 or 86 different languages in the Folsom Cordova School District. So you've got quite a few people from many cultures.
Right. And the service that we are going with has over, it's like 126 languages.
Wow.
So, yeah. And we have used it mostly for Darcy, Farsi, and Hindi. I speak Spanish, so when I'm in the office, I will take Spanish calls. Olga, who is my supervisor, speaks Russian and Ukraine, so she takes those calls. But anything else, we use that multi-language line. So thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And again, please, if you can spread the word, we'd love it. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. Okay, item 9.3. I'm going to call on Olivia, and I'm going to kill your last name probably. Kasserai?
Kassiri. Don't worry about it. A lot of people struggle.
Thank you
with
very
my
much. I appreciate it.
Good evening, and thank you so much for having me here. Just to give you a little bit of perspective, last year we paid Councilmember Linda Budge a visit, and this was part of our effort in public health to actually improve our communication with the cities. And this came about because a few years prior, we had, San Diego had a large outbreak of hepatitis A in the homeless. And there was a little bit of problem with the communication between public health and the city. And of course, all of us, the rest of the counties, looked at that, and we were looking at what are the lessons learned, and realized that we shouldn't wait for an emergency for us to come and get to know the policymakers at the city level, so that if there is an emergency, we've already established that, and it's easier for us to deal with the different issues that come up. So today I'm just going to give a very broad overview. Public health is really broad, so I'm just going to give an overview, and my hope is that at least I'll pique your interest enough that you'll invite me back again to discuss maybe in more in-depth on a topic that is of interest to you. And also if there are issues that come up, an emergency that comes up, that you will be able to contact us, our office, so that one of us can come talk to you and make sure that, we deal with the issues that come up. So public health is one of the divisions that's part of the Department of Health Services, and the other divisions are primary health and behavioral health. We work very closely together. And so who are we? In public health, we have about 232 employees, and that gives you the list of the different types of backgrounds for the staff that are part of this. And so what do we do for the community? So in your presentation, and I also actually have another card that was put at your place that shows this a little clearer, because I think it's kind of hard to read. The letters are a little small. But this was our attempt to kind of make it easier to explain what we do, the bulk of the work that we do in public health. So in the salmon column, which is on my left, is the disease control and surveillance. This is actually the area that takes up a lot of our time, and probably this is the area that you'll hear talked about a lot when people are referring to public health. Because when there's an outbreak, for example, if people eat at a restaurant and people start falling sick, they call public health, and we're the ones who investigate. When we had the Ebola scare, when there was an outbreak in West Africa, public health was the one that was monitoring travelers who were returning. And there are a lot of other diseases that get reported to us from the healthcare providers. And I'll show some data for some of the diseases that get reported to us. The next column is health education, and actually it should also include policy. And the programs that you see there, most of what they do is educating people in the public about different disease conditions and how to keep themselves safe. For example, with child passenger safety, we actually teach new parents how to install car seats properly. And then also with HIV and STD, teaching people about the risks and also reminding them that they need to get tested and so on and so forth. I won't go through the whole list. But again, the bulk of that is education to the public. Then the green one is care coordination and medical case management. And in that one, we have staff who provide services. For example, with the California Children's Services, these are children that have severe conditions. Many of them are conditions that are debilitating conditions from birth, where they do need assistance almost probably throughout their life with different things such as medical equipment, with surgeries. And so we have a program that provides case management for that. We also provide case management for TB. And also we assist children being able to get insurance coverage and getting preventive services through the Child Health and Disability Prevention Program. And the next one is Children and Family Services, and this one mainly is where you find our nursing care that we provide, home visitation. We work with Child Protective Services with some of their programs, sometimes when they are called out to a home where they expect that the child's life might be in danger, they sometimes do call a nurse to accompany them, or if a child is taken out of the home, they have a nurse, especially the younger children who can't really speak very well. They have a nurse who actually examines the child and determines if there's any further care that the child requires. And so, and again, with maternal and child health, we have nurses who actually go to the homes of pregnant or moms that have newborns or young children to help them to learn how to take care of the children and make sure that they have good skills for being able to take care of their families. What is not shown on this is a lot of the other things. So actually what you have here is what the bulk of the funding that we get pays us to be able to do this. But what's not shown on this slide is all the additional things that we do that we don't really have a funding stream for, but it falls under public health. An example is, I'm sure you're all aware of the opioid crisis that the entire country is facing. So we have a coalition that we work with to find ways of actually looking for strategies to turn that around. We work with a lot of different partners to work on the issue with the homeless. I know it's a complex issue, and so it requires a lot of stakeholders to work on. And we also work very closely with other partners such as Air Quality Management District, with environmental management, and looking at environmental issues. And I'm sure you're all aware of what happened in November when we had the really bad air when we had the fire in Butte County, and ended up with very bad air quality here in Sacramento for a whole week. And so we were, providing council guidance for the different schools and businesses, when they were trying to determine what they needed to do to keep the people safe. So I wanted to point, and also actually just to mention that the health officer, we get our authority to do a lot of the things that we do from the California Code of Regulations and also the Health and Safety Code. So I pulled out just two codes that I wanted to point out to you. One is this Health and Safety Code that talks about the relationship between the health officer and the city. And actually, when we did visit Councilmember Budge, we were actually talking about this and looking at how we can strengthen and look at ways of having either an ordinance or resolution passed by Rancho Cordova that would make sure that we have this relationship and that it actually goes both ways, knowing that you can call upon public health to help, and also when an issue comes up, we can come to you and we already are clear on the relationship that we have. This one is actually one of the broadest, gives us one of the broadest powers that we have, especially when there is an emergency, especially if it's a public health emergency. The local health officer, it says, may take any preventive measures. And of course, in doing that, we get a lot of input from different stakeholders depending on what the issue is. But this comes into play a lot when we have outbreaks or emergencies that do come up, such as floods, such as like the bad air days that we had most recently. So I'm going to move into just one of the most important things that we do in public health is collect data, because that data allows us to make decisions. As you all know, resources are limited, so we need to be able to make sure that the money that we have, we focus it on issues that are of most importance and where we can make the greatest impact. So I'm just going to show you a few slides. I won't go into a lot of detail on them, but some of the data that we collect, and this was for a different presentation, but I thought it would kind of demonstrate what I wanted to talk about. So I mentioned that we get reports from healthcare providers for different diseases. Some of them are foodborne or waterborne diseases. So this just shows you for 1 year the number of cases that are reported to us. And so there's a team of nurses that actually looks at every single one of those reports. For some of them, for example, like hepatitis A and E. coli, we do a lot more follow-up. But as you can see, we get a lot more cases of things like Giardia and Campylobacter. So,
Okay, one of my colleagues studied diseases and got a PhD in it.
awesome.
A lot of these I recognize. What's the first one, though?
So
What's another word for that?
You
I know what Giardia is. I know what Salmonella is.
Actually, most times people will just call it Campylobacter.
Really?
I don't
Okay.
think there's is there another one? No. It just, yeah. And a lot of the time, the people who come up with that are people who go camping and forget that they can't just go and drink any source of water, and they end up getting it. And most of these diseases, as you'll notice, cause things like diarrhea. So, yeah. Any other questions on this one?
I'm sure he knows all
I'll just comment, I actually came down with shigellosis.
Oh,
Extremely uncomfortable.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, very.
You don't want any details about that.
Oh, I remember when it happened, actually, to you. But there's a vaccine for that, isn't there?
No,
For shingles?
no. No, this is shigellosis.
Shigellosis, oh, that's something
Yeah,
else.
Shingles
Okay.
is totally different.
I don't know what that is. I
Yeah,
thought you had gotten shingles once.
yeah,
recently.
shingles is different. Yeah, all of these actually end up causing things like vomiting, diarrhea, so it's stuff you don't.
Okay, I thought that was
All,
shingles.
all around not good.
Yes. So of course, you can imagine the kinds of reports we get are people who are really sick. So we're trying to quickly find out what the source is and make sure that we stop the transmission or put the word out so that more people don't get sick.
So you actually had 6 cases of Yersinia?
Yeah, and I don't remember the details on those, but as you can see, those are very rare. Oftentimes, it's people who have traveled. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I would expect that to be some kind of a cluster, but maybe it just randomly comes with traveling. I mean, people coming in randomly.
Most of the ones that you see where it's just 1 or 2, or like maybe like 6, those are usually people who have traveled. You know,
And they come back with the disease from the country they go to, or?
yes.
Well, I know the shingles, for instance, I had that, but I couldn't take anything for it because I'm allergic to the shots that you get for that. So it's
Yeah.
kind of a catch-22 on that one.
True. So I'll actually come to the vaccine preventable diseases, and probably that's where you'll see the shingles. Actually, it's the next one.
There we go.
So as you'll see here, most of the cases that are reported to us are hepatitis B. Fortunately, if it's chronic, it is not transmissible, so we do get the reports, but we're not concerned that it will spread to other people. But the others, pertussis is whooping cough, and a few years ago, I think the last outbreak we had was 2014. We had over 400 cases, so that's one that we have to watch. Flu, we get every year, of course, and I'll show you some data on that. And then a number of you have mentioned shingles. So shingles and varicella is chickenpox. Shingles and varicella are caused by the same kind of virus, except that shingles usually occurs much later on in life. But chickenpox, as you know, is usually in younger children. Fortunately, because we do have a high vaccination rate in general, in Sacramento County, I believe it's in the 90s, at least for kindergarten level, most of the vaccine preventable diseases are very rare. But that shouldn't mean that we need to relax, because as you've probably heard in the news, for example, with measles, there's a huge outbreak in at least 2 states. And of course, we're always on the watch out, because if one of those people ended up traveling to Sacramento and happened to go to, we do have pockets of in the community where people have lower vaccination rates, we could end up with an outbreak. And we've had a lot of physicians calling us with different cases that come up with rashes, and we're able to work with them to make sure that we can rule out any of those diseases. So I talked about flu. We track that every year. As you can see, for 2014, 13-14, if you recall, that was a really bad year. That's when we had H1N1, and fortunately, the subsequent years have been mild, but it's something we track on a regular basis. We, of course, because a lot of people either don't even end up going to their physician, or the physician actually doesn't do testing, they'll just treat them based on the symptoms. This just is a picture of what the severity is, but it is not a total count of the number of cases that we have in the county. This is just those that are hospitalized or the deaths that we get.
My son's school right now has about 1/7 of the school population out with
Wow.
flu.
Yeah,
My son's class is 1/3 of the kids,
wow.
and one of those is hospitalized.
Wow. Yeah, and actually the interesting thing this year is we were seeing a reduction in cases being reported, and then it seems like it's climbing up again. So I'll take this opportunity to remind anyone who hasn't gotten their flu shot that it's not too late. And sometimes people think that, oh, well, I'll just, take my chances, but there are people who die, and there are people who have severe complications, so it's not something we should take lightly. And we have had reports, I think at least 2 or 3 schools that have reported absences due to people getting influenza.
It's also something to consider, going to work sick, going to school sick, going out in public sick.
Yes.
The general rule of thumb you might agree with is, if you haven't had a fever for 24 hours, it's probably okay to go out. If you have had a fever in the past 24 hours, probably not.
Just
You're
stay home.
probably infectious.
Exactly, stay home. So zoonotic diseases, these are diseases that are spread to us from animals or mosquitoes. So you'll see West Nile virus. And what you'll notice is that many of these are actually seasonal. So like we'll get West Nile virus usually in the summertime. Some of the others actually are not very common, and usually it's people who have gone camping, like leptospirosis and Lyme disease. But Zika virus, a few years ago, we had a lot of people reporting it, and these were people who had traveled to areas that had multiple cases. So it's one that we track, and we work with the Mosquito and Vector Control District in tracking these cases. But again, some of them very severe, and so it's really important when we put out notices, public health notices, that people take note.
I know I'm on the Mosquito Vector Control Board, and the West Nile virus is one of the ones that we watch, definitely, because of that.
Yes.
Some of the others, they haven't quite got here yet, that are in Southern California, but they're gradually coming up north. So
Yes.
definitely you have to pay attention to what's going on in your house and the mosquitoes. They're definite carriers of many diseases.
Yes, yes, you're referring to dengue virus infection. That's one that we're watching because there have been a few cases and actually it's been found in some mosquitoes. I believe it was in Texas, and I believe also in Southern California, so it's something that we're watching. Switching gears, just to show you some of the information that we collect for TB. We don't have a lot of cases of TB, but it's a very labor-intensive disease, very difficult to diagnose, and then treatment is minimum 6 months. And we don't just give people pills and tell them to go home and take them. We actually have staff that go to the home or workplace every single day to watch this person take their pills, because we want to make sure they complete their treatment so that they don't develop a type of disease that's resistant to the medication that we have. So good news is that our numbers are going down, but because this is a disease that's much more common in other countries, especially developing countries, and we have a lot of people traveling back and forth and people immigrating here. So we do have a system in place to screen for that and make sure that if somebody tests positive, that they get the appropriate care. Just a little bit more detail on TB, information that we collect. The first 2 rows show you male to female comparison, so most of the people we get are male. It's much more common in the Asian population, and most of these are people who have either recently immigrated or actually may have been in the country for years, decades, but as they grow older and the immune system starts breaking down, then they actually come down with the active disease. And then it shows also the age group, the last 3 rows that in blue. And as you can see, it's much more common in the older people because as they grow older, the immune system breaks down. So switching gears to maternal and child health, this just is a pictorial of the number of births in Sacramento County. majority 40% white. Then you have the Hispanic and Asian Pacific Islander about 18%, and then Black about 9.3%. By others, it depends on how people self-identify. Some people say multiracial, some people don't check anything, so it goes into that category. So we compare data from different years because it helps us to know the general trend. And so when you look at this slide, you have the 2007 compared to 2016. And good news for 2016, actually 2016 is supposed to be I think the gold ball. You can see that the numbers in general have gone down for fertility. I guess it could be good news or bad news, but I'll show you the reason I say it's good news when I go to the next slide. And that's teen births, because when we're looking at teen birth rates, of course, we want this to be as low as possible. These are people or part of our population that is not ready to be parents. And so we do not want to see these numbers very high. And as you can see with 2016, for some reason, the color changed with this PowerPoint presentation, because the 2016 up there should be the same color as the ball. But anyway, for example, if you look at the Hispanic, in 2007, it was 69 and has come down to 18 in 2016. So it all seems to be going in the right direction in terms of we have a reduced number of teen births. And we want it to stay that way so that these are people who should be in school and should wait until they're adults before they have children. The reason I'm putting this up for prenatal care is that prenatal care is really important for mothers, so that this is the time that we have to screen for different diseases and to make sure that they're in the best health that they can be before they actually deliver the baby. And this is the first time actually that we have all of the groups above the Healthy People 2020. So Healthy People 2020 is a target line that we use. It's a national target line. So seeing everybody above that is good news. And this is part of the reason why prenatal care is so important, because as you can see over time, when you look at preterm births, because the reason preterm births are so important is that children who are born too early are at a much higher risk of having complications at birth and also at a much higher risk of dying. And so when the rates are low, lower than the target of the Healthy People 2020, that's a good thing. And as you can see, there's always been this disparity for African Americans, but we seem to be making some headway with that. And for the first time, we actually got below that Healthy People 2020. So some really good news there, and we're hoping, of course, that's just a few years, but we're hoping that it will stay that way. Low birth weight, we're not doing so well. Low birth weight is also one of the other risk factors we look at when we're looking at risk factors for children dying before their first birthday. And as you can see, there are disparities, especially for African Americans, so we still have some work to do. I wanted to end with this one. I mentioned that we have nurses who work with Child Protective Services to make sure children are safe. And when we're looking at the data for children who enter into foster care, we see this huge disparity for African Americans and also huge disparity by age for children that are less than 1 year old. We are still working really hard on that with a lot of different stakeholders. You may have heard about the Black Child Legacy campaign and also First Five, Sacramento First Five, and also a lot of other partners in trying to reduce those disparities. So again, like I said, this is a really broad overview. I'm hoping that if there are areas of interest for you, I can come back and go dive more in depth, but I'll take any questions.
First off, thank you. I guess my only question would be, is and it doesn't need necessarily another presentation. I'd really love to see if you could boil those numbers down to our city.
Sure. And
At some point. I would just be really interested. I mean, even at a county level, it's really interesting to look at.
Yes.
I know we've asked some questions of our police department around deaths of methamphetamines, prescription drugs, and the like, and opioid deaths, and some other things like that. And it might be interesting if you have different data that might look at that. But I know that it's not necessarily, anecdotally, it doesn't sound like it's as big of an issue here as it is in the Midwest and some other places. But any of that data that you could boil down to within our city limits, I'd be very interested to see.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And we're working on it. It's just that the data wasn't ready for the presentation today, so I thought at least I'd just give an overview of the kind of data that we can produce, but our plan is to be able to provide you with some numbers for the city.
Yeah, I would also encourage you, we do have 4 school districts in this area. I know, in 10 years in elective office, spent 4 years on a school board. This is the first time I've ever had a presentation like this that I can remember, and it was really eye-opening to look
Great.
at
Well,
at everything that you're working on, which I wasn't aware of.
Well, we're hoping to be able to do this on a more regular basis, so thank you again for the invitation to come and present to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for passing on the information. We appreciate it very much. Okay, next 9.4, I'll call on Stacey Delaney for the presentation of the Community Enhancement Funds. And shall we go on down, council members?
Yes, please come on down. So good evening. I'm Stacey Delaney, the Community Enhancement Analyst, and this evening we are presenting 3 ceremonial checks to organizations that were approved for funding through the city's Community Enhancement Fund in fiscal year 2018-19. And the first check being presented this evening is for the upcoming community celebration known as Holi, the Festival of Colors. The celebration is organized by the Sacramento Telangana Association in partnership with the Sacramento Children's Museum, and the event will take place on Sunday, March 24th, in front of the museum from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., and it's going to include music, dancing, performances, food, and a color throw. This is a free event, and it's open to the public. And for the most fun and for the most dramatic look, people are encouraged to wear white so that the color really shows up. And with us this evening is several members of the Sacramento Telangana Association, including Anil Kanakundri and Kumbam, as well as Molly Mix from the Sacramento Children's Museum. And they're accepting the check for $1,700. Thank you. And the second check this evening is for the Accelerated Performing Arts Program, which is being coordinated by Big Idea Theater, Folsom Cordova Unified School District, and Cordova Recreation and Park District. This will be a tuition-free citywide summer program. It will take place at Cordova High School and also at Hagan Park Community Center during the summer of 2019. Auditions for the program are going to start in May, and performances are going to take place in July. And we do have a big group, so let me get through everybody. Kaylee Sari, Karen Barmadier, and Rebecca Sloan, as well as Shannon Mahoney from Big Idea Theater, Chris Clark, Brian Cooper from the school district, and Jill Nuns from the park district. And they're accepting the check for $14,680.
Taking the photograph is no slow.
Is he getting video or something?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And the last check of the evening is for Folsom Lake College Foundation. And this is for the Promise Program, which is a scholarship program to pay the fees for Rancho Cordova residents who graduate from high school during the 2018-19 school year and attend any one of the Folsom Lake College campuses. So the cool thing about our Promise Program is even if their fees are paid for by the state or by federal grants, they can use their funds to pay for things such as textbooks, supplemental materials, supplies, parking, and even gas cards, so that transportation is not a barrier to higher education. They are accepting applications now through August 1st, and Brian Robinson is here as the Dean of the Rancho Cordova Center accepting the check for $150,500. And this concludes tonight's check presentations, and this is the last one for this fiscal year, just in time for people to apply for next year's funding. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. Lots of work. And now we have introduction to a new employee, a new old kind of employee. All right. City Manager, Cyrus Abhar.
Really quick, Linda had something that she wanted to.
Yeah,
talk
we have a point here.
For the Promise
You know how
Program.
the Promise Program applies to all students in Rancho Cordova?
Yes, the short answer is that it does apply.
Okay.
As long as they are resident of Rancho Cordova, they can go to any high school and still qualify for the Promise Program.
Why not think about any of the Los Rios campuses,
Not just Folsom Lake.
not just
That
Folsom
could be,
Lake?
that could be a discussion with Folsom
Some of
Lake
them have
College.
specialties, so she was just saying her granddaughter.
Yeah, so Agnes is going to go to Casumnas because of the floral design program.
We should.
That's an
Stacy
idea that
has
we
a
need to-
comment.
Stacy may have an answer to this.
Go ahead, make the comment.
So for the students that will start school in 18-19, we have broadened the Promise Program. So in the past, we used to allow up to 12 units. We've increased that up to 18 units to
wow.
also get students in and out in the 2-year period.
Right.
We've also broadened it so that if a student attends one of the campuses but needs to take classes at one of the other campuses, it can be covered. But if you're talking totally about attending a college outside of the 3 primaries, I don't think it would be covered in full. It was to cover those things such as, oh, I need to take a elective course that's not offered at one of the 3.
Sure.
I could then go.
So when you're
and
talking
take
about
it.
3 primaries, you're talking about the main campus in Folsom and the one in Rancho Cordova. What's the third one?
Eldorado Hills.
Where there's also Consumnes and American River that
Well, no.
offer some of the other specialties that you're referring to.
Right.
So if there's something that's not offered at one of those, but it's offered at Sac City College or Consumnes, that we would, okay, good.
So we're trying to broaden it each year, and we're trying to look at what are some of the barriers that students are facing.
Yeah.
I like the idea of up to 18 units. We've talked a lot about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that also brings it in line with the statewide Promise Program, so that we're not offering 2 different unit options.
And not to brag, but yes, our Promise Program is much more beneficial to students, and that's one of the reasons we have a much larger enrollment than any other Promise Program in the region.
Right.
So we'll keep
Much as we
looking at
respect
it
those
each
other
year.
cities that run it, but ours is a lot better.
Yeah, we'll look at things such as unique program offerings, but for this year, it's just really if they're looking to fill maybe a 3-unit class that's not offered. Okay, thank
Like
you.
Donald said, we're not proud or anything like that.
Yeah, if it wasn't clear, we have the broadest Promise Program. So, good evening, Council, Mayor. I'm very pleased to reintroduce a familiar face to the City Council. Michael Runner worked as our economic development manager for close to 6 years, and we made the mistake of loaning him to City of Stockton, so never again that we will do anything like that. So Michael went to City of Stockton on a temporary assignment. This is when the city was trying to deal with the challenges related to the bankruptcy, and they liked him so much that they offered him to stay. Did a great job as the economic development director at the City of Stockton. And when we had this opening, the recent opening, and had to do some redesign of the position, I have asked Micah to join our team as our deputy city manager. So I'm very, very pleased that he is now part of our leadership team and have many, many great projects and programs that he is going to be a part of. And with that, I'll introduce Micah and ask him to say a few things. He also has some family members he wants to introduce. So Micah, come on over.
Well, first of all, thank you, Cyrus, for allowing me to come back and giving me this opportunity. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for allowing that to happen as well. But wanted to thank you and give some credit for you for allowing me to go on a long-term loan, basically, at this point. So we'll call it a rent-to-own and then sell back or whatever it might be. But I'm back now, so really looking forward to digging in, and really got a lot of great experience in Stockton. I would say, kind of in going through what Stockton has gone through, it was like getting like 5 years of experience for every year. It's kind of like dog years for the experience that you get there. And so really excited to be back and apply those things that I learned in Stockton back here and moving things forward. And I do have some family here, and they allow me to come here every other Monday now and spend time with you all. But my wife Sandy and my kids Haley and James, they are really excited because we're almost at the 7-year anniversary of their win in the City Talent Show contest. So I know they haven't had it in a while, but that's kind of what they remember, and so they're really looking forward to, they've been honing their craft a little bit, and so they were the first winner, so they're really looking forward to competing again. So, although, did you have something prepared tonight? Oh, okay, they're not ready yet, but maybe later. So thank you again, really looking forward to it, really excited to kick things off, so.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, public comment. Citizens wishing to address the council for any matter not on the agenda may do so at the time by completing and submitting a speaker card to the city clerk. For items on the agenda, speakers will be called up to the podium by the mayor. Try again. The podium by the mayor at the point on the agenda when the item will be heard. Speakers are encouraged to keep comments to 3 minutes or less and to state name and community of residence. Under the provisions of the California Government Code, the City Council is prohibited from discussing or taking immediate action on any item not on the agenda unless it can be demonstrated to be of an emergency nature or the need to take immediate action arose after the posting of the agenda. Do we have any cards for the public comment?
I have 2 speaker cards. Will the first speaker come forward? That's Larry Ladd. Following Larry will be Laura Taylor.
Hi, guys. It's time for another rocket fuel toxicity update, limited to 3 minutes. I've passed out to you a report from Louisiana. We'll refer to it shortly. But the first item, I ask you to go back into memory lane to the meeting of this body in August 2017, and I gave you this little handout with all these little black marks on it, and some of them were yellow and one was circled red. Well, the red is about, the idea is if a pregnant woman was exposed to liquid rocket fuel in the first month of her pregnancy, then there'd be increased risk for cancer in both of the kidneys of her baby. And then there are other possible related cancers. Well, ends up a surgeon at St. Jude's Hospital in Memphis just started clinical trials on that exact kind of cancer. And so I called him up, and it's really important to catch researchers when they're still in the brainstorming mode, David, and said, I explained to him my question about, basically the idea is chromosome 11 is very sensitive to the environment. It's called the sensory chromosome. Like 40% of all the functions of smell are in one chromosome. And that's the origin of this particular cancer and lots of other embryonal cancers. My idea was that chromosome 19, which is very small and mostly the telomeres, the tips, and thus also environmentally sensitive, would trigger and protect. And I talked to him over and he said, yeah, well, I didn't know that. So I gave him the citations. I CC'd you, I CC'd Mr. Terry, and I CC'd Dr. Olivia. So that's the step forward. The idea that I broached with you guys a couple years ago, he's going to take a look at it empirically. The other thing having to do with perchlorate, I'm like the lone ranger in the world on asking about perchlorate in terms of, I think the toxicities that people were worried about a long time ago had to do with synergy with B19 parvovirus. So when and this is the time of year for it, so when you're talking about kids getting sick, I suppose the way you distinguish between flu and parvovirus is the parvovirus, the kids don't cough, but I don't know. That's your realm, David. Anyway, progress in that. Purdue is working on a vaccine for parvovirus. So if you were to increase perchlorate exposure, vaccinate the kids, and as far as I'm concerned, you reduce a lot of the risk. The other thing that I look at is perchlorate's like super salt, and so ailments that you have and risks you have from high salt content get accentuated by perchlorate. The big thing would be human-beta defensin 2, which is the first line of defense. So went to Louisiana, that's what the report is about, and they introduced me to the lady who lives closest to the one place in the country where they still burn the nation's fireworks and munitions. She has a rash. There was another gentleman, she lives in, when they talk about Bush Avenue, it's the first two houses. The other gentleman also has a rash, and he's filing suit, so the lady who took me there took his paper out. But I sent you and Mr. Terry a news report from 2017 where they flash about 140 into the video of the man's rash. And so I conclude, I told them, okay, what you've given me, I'm gonna look at all these, as if I was an EMT on a response. And all these toxins, first thing you do when you go to somebody's house in your ambulance, you want to look at the meds. So, okay, everybody's been arguably being exposed to this.
Please wrap up your comments.
I shall. The argument, the thought I left him with is make sure cadmium isn't causing kidney damage that's allowing accumulation of the salts in the skin and causing that rash. Because from what I read in PubMed, you give them a standard diuretic for hypertension, you can blow out their kidneys. So that was the immediate concern. So there's the update, and hopefully in another year or so, I'll have more information to pass on to you guys.
Thank you, Larry.
Good evening, Mayor McGarvey and council members. I'm here on behalf of the district and our district administrator, Patrick Larkin, who unfortunately came down with an illness and didn't want to spread it around, so he stayed home, so kudos to him. And also the ceramics program at the Neil Orchard Senior Activity Center. And we just wanted to say thank you very much for your gift for the ceramic program storage shed and the kilns, and as a small token of appreciation, the senior members of that program, they made you all a little token that's a little apple with your names on it, and we just wanted to be able to give this to you and say thank you very much. That project's 100% done. We're just so happy and we're so appreciative of your generosity. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. All right. Onward. After our council reports, Donald Terry.
I'll keep it kind of brief. I think in the other room I talked a little bit about this, but last week I attended the California Housing Crisis Conference that talked about, well, I had a bunch of different presenters there, but was kind of honing in on different strategies, what kind of resources are at the state level, what kind of bills are coming along this year to address it. And it's pretty fascinating to think of the governor's proposal of, what is it, 3.5 million new homes in 5 years. But without some wholesale changes of policy, Bay Area and coastal communities are going to have to completely change the way they think about development. And still, we all know that the tax code, the way it is written, disincentivizes housing development in most communities and totally incentivizes building commercial. But it was an interesting conversation to hear, and even the way that some folks are framing it, and the number of people that came there with kind of an axe to grind against, letting it be somebody else's problem. So it was interesting. Attended the Falls Cordova 2x2. I'm trying to think if there was any real big news that came out of that. Not much really that I can point to. And then the last thing I will just say, and this may have a little bit more to do with my day job, but on Friday I joined the board of directors of the Greater Sacramento Urban League's board of directors, and then we had an all-day retreat. It was interesting. The county health official that was speaking about the Black Child Legacy campaign is something that the Urban League has been working on region-wide in a handful of different areas, but the one that I thought was very unique was some healthy parenting classes around where your children should sleep, like not in the bed with you and in a crib face up and all these other things that, as a new parent, I went to all these classes at Kaiser and it was all covered by my insurance, but, if I'd probably gone and asked my parents when I was born, the rules were completely different and the recommendations were completely different. It is interesting to think back now when you look at child care, car seats and all these other things. It's amazing that any of us made it to adulthood with all of the things that they warn us about doing. But that's an interesting project that the Urban League is working on. So yeah, that's my report for this week.
Thank
Donald,
you.
you're
Linda.
absolutely right. People complain about SUVs. The number one reason for SUVs, the popularity of SUVs and minivans, is in order to accommodate all of the car seats that are needed. Principal Hayden was correct. A whole bunch of us chased each other around town on Friday doing the Read Across America thing. And thank you very much, Maria, for providing us all Dr. Seuss hats that none of us could wear because they were child size. It saved us a lot of embarrassment in the world. I attended the, there is we've talked about it before, a Metro Fire District Public Safety Foundation. And that was a kind of an organizational thing. Elizabeth Spartman and I attended the South Sacramento Conservation Agency, I think we're calling it, which is the agency that's been set up to facilitate the HCP. And this really was a foundational meeting that included the adoption of a lot of the rules and regulations and ordinances of how this thing is going to operate, including the fee, which is not small. And in David's place, I attended the meeting of the connector. Also, not this Friday, but last Friday, a week ago. But all of those were very routine meetings, with the exception, unfortunately, of regional transit. And regional transit on Monday night last week, as David pointed out, was very painful. Rancho Cordova is being left with one bus and parts of two others. When it came right down to it, Supervisor Cerna, Supervisor Natoli, and I all requested that the very small handful of minor changes that the people in the audience were requesting, things like, such logical things like, for Pete's sakes, the state of California has a great big consumer affairs office up on North Market or Northgate. And the people all up there asked that you please not change the bus so they can all still get off and go to work. I mean, there are hundreds of them, okay? And just really minor things like that. And yet the majority of the Regional Transit Board would not hold off for 2 weeks in order to allow staff time to cure those things. So Supervisor Cerna made a substitute motion to delay for 2 weeks. it was denied. And so then Supervisor Natoli and I ended up being the only two on the RT board who did not vote for this wonderful big plan called SAC RT Forward, because we don't think it moves the region the way was originally envisioned or as needs to be. So that's my report.
Good.
Well, Linda, that sounds like very tough duty at an agency that is not easy duty for whoever represents us there. But do you see any window going forward to readdress the decisions that were made there?
Albert and his staff are working very hard on that. There is no question about that. Rancho Cordova's ability to provide mobility for our residents, especially those who live north of the freeway, north of Folsom Boulevard, is really going to rest in some programs that are like either the Cordovan or this thing they're calling Smart Ride. The Cordovan is probably our best shot because we can tailor it to run where we want it to run and when we want it to run. The Smart Ride is a program of regional transit, and it's kind of like a dollar ride service. And that's all fine and dandy, but there are a lot of people who feel that they should be able to take that to school or to work, and it doesn't work for that. It's marginal if you want to go to the doctor, because this is really one of those things. It's like getting into the shuttle at the airport. 6 people get into the shuttle driver says, okay, we're going to go here and here and here and here and here and here, and if you're number 6, you're last, and that's fine. But you really can't depend on it to get you to a doctor on time, or to get you to work on time, or to get you to school on time. So
this is an Uber or a Lyft competitor in a way, except that you're sharing it with a bunch of other people.
Yes.
It's like Uber Pool.
Well, yeah,
I've been on Uber Pool with 3 destinations, but they were all really close together.
Yeah, but there are not enough of the little vans that they're using to be that selective in limiting the number of drop-offs and delivery. But right now, it's working quite well, according to the city of Citrus Heights, according to Orangevale, and according to the city of Folsom. But it does have limited application, and I just want to make that clear, because I have had people send me emails and ask, when can we have Smart Ride? And that's fine. We just need to realize that it has certain applicability, but not for everything.
Well, Citrus Heights had very little transit before, so anything's an improvement. Orangevale had essentially none. This is my memory anyway. I might be a little off here. And Folsom's ridership was very, very low. So,
Sir, curiously, you could get into and out of Citrus Heights quite well. You couldn't run around Citrus Heights,
right.
Which of course is the whole weakness in the regional transit system to begin with. You can't run up and down. You can't just run up and down Watt Avenue or Arden or Marconi or whatever, or Folsom Boulevard, as a matter of fact.
So this new plan leaves Rancho Cordova without a bus serving the Sunrise Station?
Absolutely.
And without, with bus service at Mather Mills, though?
Everything, they have focused on Matherfield Mill Station as the new hub, instead of running down to the Sunrise Station and then connecting Sunrise down Folsom Boulevard to Matherfield and ultimately to Butterfield. What they did, though, the one thing they did, because they run from Matherfield Mill Station to Butterfield, you can take the bus to the Rancho Cordova Library, which the Friends of the Library really lobbied hard for. So you can still do that.
All right. Okay, well, I didn't want to leave that sitting without a little bit more information.
Yes.
For the public.
At some point, we should really decide if we want to look at alternative models beyond RT. I mean, if you look at Westsac and their launch of VIA, which was mid last year, I want to say, the memberships, everything that they're, I'm not sure exactly how much that cost them. I don't think it was a ton of money, but the ridership that they're getting, it's like 80% senior citizens are using it, and it's a hailing app. It's just like Uber or Lyft. It's they're subsidizing the heck out of it for low income folks that can get like for like $10 or something like that. You get like 20 rides a month. And I know I was at their community center, not their library, their community center across the street from City Hall. And they have a small senior center there. Every person that was in that room that day, it was like 15 of them, everyone got there by using VIA.
Interesting.
So there's other models out
Yeah,
there that we
yeah.
might really want to try to take advantage of. Especially, again, you know, we always talk about our business park, but I mean, this is where you would find users at lunchtime to get to KP if they didn't have to move their car and all that other stuff and just hop in and do that kind of stuff. I think the market for something along those lines, but you know, if RT's not, because I've heard of this hailing program and everything, we never seem to be the test case for these things. So maybe it's time to look at
Well,
something.
they are coming. Later this summer, Albert, later this summer, they're going to start a smart ride here.
Okay.
They're starting, but here again, it's like you said, the subsidy is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Once the grants run out, this thing goes away.
Well, right, and that's the thing too. And they're also you're using antiquated equipment that was designed for something completely different, and they're trying to use the equipment that they have to do what other things are doing way more efficiently and at a scale that makes it way more cost effective. And maybe there's a way for us to partner. I know we looked at this with bike share and everything else, and because Sacramento didn't use it, we couldn't get these things. But maybe there's an opportunity. I don't know.
The one thing they are doing is that they are acquiring new electric vans to do the smart ride.
Okay.
Yeah, we actually have two active programs to address that issue. One is the Smart Ride, the microtransit, and the other one is the partnership with Lyft. That was delayed, but it's still alive, and we hope
Did
to.
we get a presentation of that? I wasn't aware of that. It's not today.
Yeah,
It's-
Albert
Or
and
maybe
his team can
Okay.
can do that.
That'd be great. Thank you.
All right, back to my report. The Dr. Seuss Day was fun. Thankfully, the hat did not fit. I have a general rule against silly hats unless I choose them myself. But anyone needs a reading of Daisy Head Maisie, I have a great deal of experience now at Dr. Seuss's Daisy Head Maisie. I'm going to resist the urge to say part of it. I attended the Sacramento Asian Chamber annual dinner, which was a lot of fun. That is a very impressive organization, as many of you know. Their theme for the night was Crazy Rich Asians, which I thought was sort of amusing, but it was a chamber event, so I guess maybe.
They always do something.
They got to do something.
Yeah.
I will be co-chairing their the Asian Chamber, SACOG, who else is involved in it? Not Regions Business this year, but Barry Broom's organization. So those organizations are coming together to chair a, what are we calling it, a study mission, a trip to DC in about 2 weeks, which I'm co-chairing. So that'll be interesting. The Rancho Cordova Faith Council met last week. Councilman Garrett Gatewood sort of kicked that off. I'm attending those as well. It's starting off the way RCAA started off, the way Cordova River Community Council efforts generally start off, Historical Society started off, in that people get together in the room, they don't know each other, they get to know each other, and they find commonalities and things to work on. So the future there, I think, is very bright. It's exciting to see that process begin again with another group of people here in the city. I'm on the League of California Cities Board of Directors, and we met with Governor Newsom 2 weeks ago. I have a follow-up meeting with him or his staff in the governor's office tomorrow, specifically talking about corridors that need investment. So it's the Green Means Go concept from SACOG perhaps, or some other initiative that they're interested in working on. But the focal point is Folsom Boulevard or Sunrise or Coloma. How do you get new investment into an old commercial corridor where economically it doesn't necessarily happen on its own? What are the barriers? That's what they're interested in looking at. And finally, in the diplomacy department, basketball is kind of over, so we thought Cyrus's duties in calming our frayed competitors' nerves was okay, but there was one more thing. I coached the St. John Vianney Academic team, and we came in third in the greater Sacramento region, beating Roseville and Folsom and West Sacramento and Elk Grove and Carmichael and Fair Oaks and all over the place. To pull that off. And again, we came in second in the super quiz. So very impressive performance by a local school. We have gone from, I think, 17th place to 7th place to now 3rd place in that competition. So a similar path, interestingly enough, has been followed by St. Mel's, our neighbor just across the river. They came in 2nd this year, so they're now our rival in this event. But it's exciting to see kids participate in something, an academic competition like that in Rancho Cordova. And frankly, I wish that our public schools could find a similar opportunity for their kids, contingent with what the private schools are doing in the region. That's my report.
We should mention that Robert J. McGarvey School has a kid participating in the regional spelling bee.
As a matter of fact, they are, yes. That's And speaking of the Robert J. McGarvey Elementary School, I went there and I read on Read Across America, Dr. Seuss. That was a lot of fun. I had first grade and third grade and fourth grade. It was just a lot of fun listening to the kids. And the questions that they asked were just everything from what's your favorite book to how old are you to why are you here? What do you do as the mayor? I said, I work sometimes, you know.
You didn't get,
Bob, what happens when the kindergartners hear your name, knowing the name of their school?
Well, some of them just kind of, their jaws kind of drop, and others say, they don't really, it didn't really sink in yet, you know. But it was a lot of fun anyway,
so
so.
Daisy Head Maisie has a character in it that is the mayor.
Oh, yeah, I read that.
And
Yeah.
so I got to that page and I said, have any of you ever met a mayor? And they're like, no. What do you think a mayor would be like? That was a lot. We had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And then Terry and I went to Mac and saw the typewriters that they had there. And there's one of them, one of the things that they did, the gentleman did some beautiful art. You can see some people and some things on there, and it took weeks to get one of the pictures because he would use one key to get one little item on the picture. Then he would hit another key to do another one. And I thought the patience of someone like that to come up with this art that he did. But some of those typewriters were just amazing. People were still using that. And now no one uses them unless they're using them for an example of what used to be or something like that. But they're beautiful. They have one that's what it looks like when you find it in the garage and it's full of dust. And this is what it looks like after. So they had one before and one after. So it was kind of interesting. But it's really interesting to see that Mac and go over there and see what's available. It's very nice. One more thing, the Veterans Success Center at the Folsom Lake College campus. I had a meeting with a veteran and the two people who are working there, but they don't have one person who is a full-time paid staff member. They just started this last year, but they're looking for, their goal is to try to get $60,000 so they can use that for the year for getting someone on full-time. And they compared it to this Sacramento City college, and they have 8 full-time people there. And they don't have any at Folsom Lake College. So that's something that they're gonna have to be working on. At Sacramento City College, they've been doing it for a long time, so there's been something that's been building up like that. But they really do need to have someone there. The veterans who go there to that center, they have computers, they have all kinds of help when someone's there. But they need to have a lot more help on that. So I'll be working with them on that to see what we can do about getting some more money on that. Oh, there's one other thing that I don't have written down here, but I talked to Principal Mr. Peterson at Riverview STEM Academy. He has a gentleman who is really good at welding and all that sort of thing. He's building a cart for him. Now, that's a cart you see usually in most elementary schools, and you can hook up on it, and you can carry stuff around like that. But this one is made to last. Most of the time, they go to the market and they get something for they being the elementary schools. We have these carts, and they last 2 or 3 years maybe. But this is something that it's only costing them $500. So I'm assuming the gentleman's doing it just on parts and cost of the welding and all. Anyway, it's but I'm going to see if he can get something more on that, and maybe we can have something with that gentleman that'll help some of the other elementary schools. Because I know Mr. Peterson really is looking forward to getting one that it's not going to come apart on him. So he's looking forward to that. So I'll let you know how that goes. And that's what I have. So our city manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Everything has already been mentioned. I just would like to add a meeting that we had last Tuesday, a special council meeting that was focused on the visioning. And the way the discussion was designed, we talked about the long-term vision for the city and then focused on some of the midterm and short-term goals and priorities. Felt very good about the discussion, the direction we got from the council. It was very healthy, robust discussion. And we would be using the information that we discussed at this meeting to put together a work plan, to put together a vision document, and we will refine it and we'll take that into the budget process to identify some of the short-term projects and programs that we will fund as part of this, the implementation of the long-term vision. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Very good. Thank you. Item 13, consent calendar items consist of matters deemed routine and non-controversial by staff. Unless a member of the council wishes to pull an item for individual consideration, all items will be approved by one motion. Are there any items council wishes to pull?
Seeing none, I'll move approval of the consent calendar, items 13.1 through 13.5.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Ask our city clerk for a roll call, please.
Councilmember Budge?
Yes.
Councilmember Terry?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Sander?
Aye.
Mayor McGarvey?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item 14, consent public hearing items. Consent public hearing items consist of matters deemed routine and non-controversial by staff. Unless a member of the council wishes to pull an item for individual consideration, all items will be approved by one motion. I'm going to open this to public hearing and ask our city clerk if we have any cards on this.
I do not.
Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on this? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing.
And I'll move approval of item 14.1.
Second.
Okay, motion and clerk, and would you ask our city clerk to call the roll, please?
Councilmember Budge?
Yes.
Councilmember Terry?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Sander?
Aye.
Mayor McGarvey?
Aye. Okay, thank you very much. Item number 15, public hearing items. Ask our city clerk to announce the subject, please.
Cordova Community Pool Replacement Conditional Use Permit and Minor Design Review Permit, project number DD 9831, located within Hagan Park at 2197 Chase Drive.
Very good, thank you. And we're asking staff for a report, please.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. June Cowles of the Planning Department. With this cold and rainy weather, it's a good time to talk about pools. So the applicant is Cordova Recreation Park District, and they're requesting a minor design review for replacement of the existing pools with 2 new pools, decking and the pool equipment, lighting, landscaping, and a new 604 square foot building. And that's for their pool equipment, locker, restrooms, and ticket, I guess, buying area. And then the conditional use permit is for the 17 to 19-foot high new building. So looking at the location, it's within Hagan Park, near the high school and the American River Parkway. Here's a shot of the existing site conditions. The community pool was built in 1960 and it closed in 2015 due to pool and the decking failure. So that's 55 years of a lot of swimming. So the proposed site plan, one new 10-lane lap pool and one new rec and pool, and that has 2 extra lap lanes. So there's a little bit of a separation on that pool from the lap area and then the recreational area. The new building is highlighted in or outlined in red, and that's between the existing building and then the new pool. New decking and lighting, ADA compliant access, open view fencing, and a replacement of the existing fence to the north around that area of the trees. Also included is phase 2, and that is with sports pool competition lighting. The building has modern architecture with the colors of tones of brown and some accent orange colors. And so I have the material boards to pass out.
Very nice.
And so for the sports lighting detail, it's 4 poles, and they're going to be 60 feet in height. The location is circled in red of the pool lights. And these fixtures have shields, and so here's the cut sheet for light spillover at 150 feet out, which is at 0.
I am somewhat amused by, what is that, the Bay Bridge that appeared in the one image of the lighting there? It's a similar?
In the attachment. So the condition.
Interesting to compare the pool lighting to Bay Bridge lighting. I just thought that was interesting.
The conditional use permit is required because it's in the Parkway Corridor Overlay District, and that states that structures 12 feet or over have to get a conditional use permit. So the new building is 17 feet in height, and then the canopy is at 19 feet in height. It's going to be located behind the existing community building, and that is at approximately 16 feet in height. And so that community building is to the left of this picture.
Linda, does this surprise you that this is in the Parkway Corridor Overlay District?
Sorry. No. When the Parkway Corridor Ordinance was passed, it was unincorporated county all the way from Watt Avenue all the way out the river to the city of Folsom. And when we built our garage on Mira del Rio, these were the things that we...
Oh, that's right. Now I remember.
These were the things that we had to...
I forgot about that detail.
They didn't want us to paint it the same color as the house and so on and so forth. But as we see in their architects' arguments, every color, almost every color exists in nature somewhere. And I love the linkage between this and rock formations along the river.
This is the issue we had 20 years ago, where houses on the north side of the river were being granted variances on a regular basis, and houses on our side of the river were not.
Well, and if you'll remember correctly, one of the members of the Parkway Commission at that point in time wanted to prohibit anybody from basically adding a second story to an existing single-story building. And we motivated everybody between Watt and Sunrise, and we all ran down to the Parkway Commission and got that overturned. That was a good fight.
So the,
Thank you, June.
sure. The proposed building site location design has been designed to integrate into the surrounding buildings and landscaping. CEQA exemption consistent with the general plan and replacement or reconstruction. A recommended motion is that staff recommends approval for the CEQA exemption and adopt a resolution approving the conditional use permit minor design review, subject to findings, the project plans, and conditions of approval. And with that, the applicant is here, and if you have any questions.
Hearing none then, I'm going to open up the public hearing and ask the city clerk if there are any speaker cards for this item.
I do not have any.
Anyone in the audience like to speak on this item? Yep, seeing none, close public comment.
Move the item.
Yeah, I just want to, and I'll second it, I just want to compliment the Park District on the design, which of course we've seen before, but then the implementation and the way in which you just took the kind of the one-dimensional design and made it real. Donald, this is their color board. Mm-hmm. And it's really quite lovely, and it will be very, very terrific addition, so thank you very much.
Cyrus, if I could follow up on an issue you and I talked about maybe 6 months ago, I'm not certain of the time. Is there a separate agreement coming forward to us, or is that done between the city and the Park District for the funding of this facility?
I would like to refer to, we have some staff members have been working on this. My understanding is that we, as part of the Measure H process, the funding was approved by the council. It was in the budget, but we also had a requirement or a need for the council to see the design concepts before they go into the full design drawings for the pool. And so particularly the one that we are the city's funding, the bulk of the city's funding is going to the smaller pool. And we wanted to see how this design will work as part of our Measure H application process.
So obviously, we don't know the cost of the facility yet.
And I don't think we will ever know the cost until the project is bid, because we can do our best cost estimate, and the bids may come in different than our estimates.
But if adjustments are needed along the way, is there a mechanism between us and the Park District to tackle that?
We really haven't. I think at this point, and Laura, if you have any further information, I would appreciate if you can add to it. My understanding is that the project is on track, the design is on track, and that it's still within the budget that we had initially planned for.
Absolutely. Yes, and we are being careful to look at, as we put together the construction documents, making sure that there are items that are declared as additive alternates, so that if the bids come in higher than the budget currently allows, then we've got some flexibility to make those modifications. Right now, the total construction cost, in other words, the cost that we expect the bids to come in is approximately $7.1 million. And then, of course, there's soft costs on top of that, and contingency and things like that. As far as the conceptual, that was something we had presented back in near the end of last year, I believe, we came and presented that. And so the design review information that you've been submitted today, we hope will answer your questions. And if you have any other questions, we're happy to answer them. I do have Anthony Harris from our consulting group in the audience, as well as Jill Nuns from who's our recreation superintendent. And so if you folks choose to approve the conditional use permit and the minor design tonight, then we're going to work post-haste to complete the construction documents. We anticipate seeking all the permits and getting the permits secured by the end of fall of 2019. We want to put the project out to bid over the winter of 2019-20 with the intent to issue a notice to proceed in the first quarter of 2020. The project will take at least 14 months to construct. We also recognize that there have been some other agencies near us that have struggled with some construction delays in their pools, and we're hoping to avoid those. Our goal is to be able to have the pool open to the public sometime in the summer of 2021.
Very good,
Okay.
very good.
And Cyrus, the last comment, and this might apply to you as well. We did get some feedback from the school district about the applicability of this particular design to water polo, as I remember.
Yes.
And there may have been another issue that I'm forgetting, but I think you investigated that?
Yes, yes. And I think this issue was discussed at length when we brought the concept design, and I think our understanding was that we were going to move ahead with the proposed design. It will not get exactly everything that we potentially some pools for water polo. I think it was mainly what water polo would have, but it does have, but the pool, the way it's designed, would accommodate water polo. But they would not have detached goals or
That's
separate
correct. The
goals.
goals have to be outside of the pool instead of inside of the pool, but there's certainly, it accommodates the proper size to accommodate water polo, even high school water polo, but the nets do have to be on the outside, but that is an acceptable standard for high school. But there's also a standard for if the goals are in the pool, and that it cannot accommodate, but
Yeah, I think the feedback we had and we don't have a water polo team at Cordova now, as I understand it.
right.
But I think the comment was that you can't hold a competition in a pool like this, although you could train in a pool like this. Is that your understanding as well? I mean, like in practice, where would they choose to compete?
I'm understanding that they can play the game. I can't speak about the competition of it. That part I'm unfortunate, but I can get the information and get it to you.
All right, I just wanted to be sure we had comments that we ran those reasonably down.
Yeah, I recall you bringing this up when we voted on this. And that was one of the comments that you had said, but I if I recall, I don't know if we had somebody from the school district here to speak on it that night. But it sounded like that was the trade-off comparatively to moving, spending another $1 million somewhere. Right. And I think the question was, if the school district's got the money, maybe that's something that we can do, but I think that was clearly told to us that they don't.
No, they don't have any available bond funds for this.
Yeah.
All right, I think that covers it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
You need a motion for this item?
Any other questions by the members of the council?
Nope, I'll move the staff's recommendation.
We did that,
Oh, we already did. I'm sorry, I was out of the room.
I'm the second.
My fault.
Yeah. Call the question.
I just need a roll call vote.
What I just did.
So, Councilmember Terry.
Aye.
Councilmember Budge.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sander.
Aye.
Mayor McGarvey.
Aye.
Thank you.
Yes, you did.
All right, going on to item 50.2, and ask the city clerk to announce the subject, please.
An ordinance amending the Rancho Cordova Municipal Code related to Title IV Business Regulations and discussion and direction on future code amendments.
You're on stage. Go for it.
Good evening, Mayor McGarvey, members of the council. Before you this evening is some municipal code amendments related to sidewalk vendors. So we will be asking for the council to consider those amendments and introduce and waive the first reading of the ordinance. And then we have a discussion on some future potential code amendments. In January of this year, new state law became in effect, which basically, with some exceptions, prevents cities from preventing sidewalk vendors to locate within their public right-of-way. So in this case, we're talking about locating on actual sidewalks, not within the street. But we can impose some regulations when those are directly related to health, safety, and welfare concerns. We can also adopt specific requirements, development standards, and a permit process, but it cannot be unduly restrictive, so it has to be pretty similar to a business license review and over-the-counter type review. So what was the intent of this new legislation, and this is statewide? It's to promote some entry-level entrepreneurship and economic development equality throughout the state. So what staff has proposed to do, rather than just default to state law, we are proposing to make some amendments to an existing section within our code related to street businesses to regulate these sidewalk vendors. So as you can see before you on the screen, there's some minor amendments that we're proposing to an existing section of the code. This is to clarify some definitions, restructure how the section currently reads, clarify some of the prohibitions that are in there, and then talk about some of the exceptions. The bulk of the changes you're going to see before you on the screen, and I'll kind of summarize these. So what we're proposing is to require a zoning certification to permit the operation of sidewalk vending within our city on the sidewalks. We already have a zoning certification process in place, so we're not creating a new permit. This is an over-the-counter permit. It must be kept on hand for those sidewalk vendors when it's issued. The only circumstance that it would not be over the counter is if for some reason their information is lacking, so they haven't filled out the application completely. Otherwise, this will be a same-day issuance. So some of these standards that are consistent with state law, and mind you, they have to be directly related to health, safety, and welfare. The first one is they must maintain a 4-foot wide clear path of travel. So this is compliance with the California Building Code and to ensure accessibility. So they cannot put a pop-up over the sidewalk. They can't put sandwich board signs within the sidewalk. They must have a clear 4-foot wide clear path of travel. Additionally, we're requiring any sort of trash can in case they are a food vendor so that their patrons can dispose of any trash. We are also asking that they not locate on sidewalks that are within the vicinity of a construction zone or a traffic control area. This is actually in the state law. We're just reiterating that standard. And the fourth one is also within the state law that we are just reiterating, which is they cannot locate within the immediate vicinity of any sort of special event that we've issued a permit for, swap meets, farmers markets, that sort of thing. So it's to reduce that competition for those particular events.
Can I ask a question about that, though? How does that relate to events at the Village Green or the farmers market at Sunrise?
So it does directly relate to those events. So the state law says that we can prevent them from locating within the vicinity of those types of events.
If we choose to.
If we choose to. If we choose to do nothing, then we just default to state law, and somebody could locate near a farmer's market, but we're actually putting this in our ordinance that they cannot.
For instance, David will remember at the 4th of July, there is very often a guy who comes peddling his little ice cream vendor truck down Coloma, down Chase, and through the park. So if somebody were to complain about that, then we could kick them out, but otherwise they would just be doing it.
So one note is that this ordinance will actually only regulate city sidewalks. So anything on private property is a separate process, and anything that's located within the parks, the park district would have to control that themselves. So this is only for city sidewalks. So if there's a vendor that's on the city sidewalk and they're vending or peddling, they would, under this ordinance, have to have a permit. Once they get on private property, it's a separate process.
Okay, I have a question then. Obtaining a zoning certification permit to operate on sidewalks, is that something they get that just for the day and have to do it the next day, or is that a certain amount of time it's good for?
They will get it for a year.
For a year?
Mm-hmm. So after the year, they'll have to come in and renew that type of permit.
Interesting. Okay, thank you.
What if, because I think the instance that Linda's talking about, sometimes, they'll be in the parking lot near the entrance to the 4th of July festival that's going on. But I'm thinking of like during the parade, they're on the closed down street of Coloma. How are we going to accommodate that? I've never had anybody complain about that frankly. So I don't think this is a problem. I just want to make sure that we're making them aware of kind of what they need to be doing.
Right, so private property, again, would be a separate
No, I'm saying in the
permit.
public, they're in a
But if
public
they're-
street that's been shut down for a parade.
Right, so this only is on the sidewalks, so if they're on the sidewalk, they would need a vendor ordinance. If they're actually on the street, unless they're covered in the parade permit, our current code doesn't allow them to vend in the public right-of-way, meaning the street. So technically.
But we're not going to be writing tickets, right? For that.
We're all looking at the back of the room here.
I think the point of this is to make sure that we're not unduly prohibiting this action, right? So
Correct.
in special events where it's safe for them to do it,
Correct.
they can do it. Okay.
Correct, yes. So when we talk about enforcement, there's a couple different levels of citation. State law is very clear that we can only go through an administrative citation process with these street sidewalk vendors. So there's two separate administrative citations. One, if you are in violation of one of our standard operating regulations, and the other one meaning you don't have a permit. So the violations can continue to occur, the fines can go up, and they're higher if you don't have a permit versus you're just, you're blocking the sidewalk. Additionally, a permit could be revoked if they're a repeat offender, so there is a process to do that. If they don't have a permit and they do obtain a valid permit, the state law says that their fines would be reduced by the local agency. So it's a little bit different than what we typically do on enforcement cases, but this is within the state law, and this is the process that we have to go through for any sort of administrative citation. Before I jump to solar canopies, which is a follow-up item, does anybody have any questions about the sidewalk vendor ordinance?
We actually have public comment.
Thank you.
Do you want me to continue with this part of the
Hang on.
conversation?
I think we actually have public comment on this.
I did this is the public hearing item, so do we have anyone in the audience that wishes to speak? Oh, amazing. I'm glad you're there, so.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Darrell Langwell from the Vineyards neighborhood. Will this affect organizations like Scouts or school clubs that might set up some sort of selling on the sidewalks?
Well, so it sounds like out in front of Lowe's, that's fine because it's private property. But if they put it out on the sidewalk on International instead of in the front door of Lowe's, then they could be cited.
Technically, you could require them to get a permit. I don't think the intent is to penalize the folks like the Girl Scouts. It's really to have a more regulated process for the sidewalk vendors. You should also note that because of the 4-foot wide sidewalk clearance, it's going to be very difficult to maintain that in a lot of our residential neighborhoods. So you're really going to see these on our major thoroughfares.
It's the people selling roses and teddy bears and balloons at the corner on Valentine's Day, or oranges or strawberries or whatever. Actually, economic development tried to deal with this like 10 or 12 years ago, and I'm not sure we actually adopted anything because we couldn't figure out how to, we couldn't come up with a good definition of what was really, it was called itinerant vending. So what was a good definition for itinerant? Was itinerant good or were they bad? So I guess what we have now is what we adopted at the time.
Correct. So what we have now is, aside from this, is that we typically, prior to the state law, is we did not allow any vending within the public right-of-way.
Yeah. So, okay, so that's, like you said, the idea is to promote entrepreneurship. And that's fine. This is a code amendment. Do we need to adopt this before we just go on and discuss the solar panels?
You could do it separately right now as an action, and then we can discuss the other 2 items.
Do you want to do that? I'll move that we approve the code amendment to permit sidewalk vending.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on that.
And if I could just clarify for the
yes.
record, the requested, this is the first of the 2 steps. So the motion on each of these is to
waive the first reading.
reading and introduce each of these.
waive
So
the
we'll be
first-
back for the second reading for
Right.
all of these.
They'll go on consent next time, right?
And
Yeah.
just as a matter of convenience, you can certainly take them separately if you prefer to, or I think you could discuss all of them together and then move all of them
But
together.
the solar panels is not a code amendment.
That's right.
So this is an action item, the other one's an
You're
information
welcome to
item.
proceed, right?
Yeah. So we have a motion and a second.
Yep. Have the roll call, please.
Councilmember Budge?
Yes.
Councilmember Terry?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Sander?
Aye.
Mayor McGarvey?
Aye. All right, thank you. Now,
Okay.
Onward to the solar.
2 quick discussion items. This is just a continuation of a conversation we had back in January. We talked about potentially converting portions of our parking lots into solar canopies, as we've had a few inquiries to do this type of design in the city. So what we heard from council was that you may be open to potentially amending the code to allow this, but you wanted to see more examples of what works and what doesn't work. One of the concerns that was addressed last time from council and a staff level is how to retain some of the trees that are on site. A lot of our parking lots where we're going to see a lot of inquiries on this have large mature trees on the exterior boundary lines as well as within the parking lot. So how can we accommodate this progressive approach of solar canopies, but also preserve the integrity of our existing landscaping on the sites? So what we've done is gather various examples of what works and maybe that is a little bit less desirable that we probably want to stay away from. So everybody's probably familiar with Cal Expo. They do have some internal solar canopies. You can see in the upper left-hand corner, this is an aerial. They have retained a lot of their large canopy of trees along the streets. They've also incorporated some landscaping within the parking lot as well to kind of give that balance between landscaping and solar parking. Another example that we have is the Caltrans property in Stockton. While they have preserved some of the exterior landscaping, not a whole lot of trees have been preserved on the outside, but they have incorporated a lot on the inside of the parking lot. Here's some just interior landscaping solutions that were provided. This is the Kaiser in Pleasanton, which has recently converted over a lot of their parking lot into solar canopies. So they have protected that integrity of having some interior landscaping and not just leaving all these existing landscape islands as gravel or just bark.
Actually, I thought this was kind of funny. It looks sort of like a greenhouse.
It does kind of look like a greenhouse. And what they've done is planted some landscaping that doesn't grow too tall and still will do well with having that shade.
Actually, I'm amazed that your very first example of how not to do it is not the Teal Data Center down the road.
Well, you can't get in there to do it. With all the gates and stuff.
She can stand on the
Yeah,
sidewalk.
you know that
picture.
It came up
Made the
last time,
guard
and
really
I think
mad.
we were all pretty much on the same page that was not what we were striving for. So the next example we have is just some more pictures of the Kaiser in Pleasanton of how they have converted their parking lot and tried to provide some internal landscaping as well. So UC Davis, one of their parking lots that they have that is adjacent to the freeway, they have done a combination of keeping a huge chunk of that as a normal parking lot with a lot of mature landscape trees and then converting just a small portion of it to solar. This is a small little office center in Woodland where they've done a good job of providing a combination of some exterior landscaping, interior landscaping, and some solar panels. And as you can see from these pictures, they're all a little bit different, the designs in terms of the solar panels that are provided. So keep in mind that the way that the law is written, there's so much that we can regulate in terms of development standards of retaining landscaping, but in terms of the actual design and what the solar panel looks like, we don't have any say over that. So in some cases, we can work with them to get something that's a little more appealing, but a lot of times they have their typical prototype that they're going to put in the parking lot. Here's just some miscellaneous renderings of some potential landscaping that can be incorporated. The upper right-hand corner, I think, does a really good job. While it's a rendering of incorporating landscaping within the parking lot, they've still preserved the public walkways. So while there's a balance between the two, you can see that they've done a great job of making sure there's landscaping for both. So here's some few less desirable designs. These are things I think we don't want to lean towards. They took a parking lot, converted it, and left the landscape islands pretty bare. Nothing is growing here, and we just have a sea of asphalt and solar panels. So these are all just examples of a little less desirable type of development for our parking lots. So when we're looking at some potential code amendments, staff is suggesting just a few things for council to consider. Last time what we talked about is that the code currently states you have to have 50% shade parking or shade in your parking lot, and that has to be tree canopy shade. So because it specifically says trees, there isn't any discretion over can we do a balance of both. What we found in research is that it is difficult to try to nail it down to a percentage. Every parking lot's different, every design will be different. So is it a 30-20%? Is it a 25-25%? It's kind of hard to nail down what the right percentage is. So rather than trying to nail it down to a specific number, maybe through using various development standards such as retaining the existing tree canopy along the street, not allowing the parking stalls that are adjacent to streets to be covered by solar canopies, requiring additional internal landscaping, also protecting the integrity of the internal pedestrian sidewalks and tree-covered areas to not lose all of your tree canopy. So as I said, we didn't find one good example of the best way to do it. I think a combination of various development standards and through a design review process could result in a pretty good product. But I wouldn't suggest trying to come up with a number to say 30% trees versus 20% solar canopies. That's the conclusion of my discussion item on solar canopies. I have one more, but if you'd like to discuss this now and provide some direction, that would be great.
Can we require use permit?
I don't know if the state law allows us to do a use permit. I think we can do a design review, but I don't think we can do a use permit.
Let's add design review.
So let's maybe back up for one sec. So one thing that some of us have just recently learned is that SMUD has reached their solar goal for production within their service area, and there is no longer a tax credit for solar. We're learning this on Veterans Village. In phase 3, that there was going to be a solar installation that included a tax credit from SMUD that no longer exists, or a subsidy or rebate or something like that. So all of the subsidies for solar installation are gone. So my suggestion is we don't need to work on this at all, because most solar installation within the SMUD footprint is not going to be financially viable anymore, and at least until they make a policy change. So spending a bunch of time on a process where, I mean, Cyrus and I were just talking about the state did it on their facility because the state has a goal of so much solar within their facilities. Most commercial installations are not going to be
Okay,
financially.
so two things. All right. Number one, even though their rebates have been used up, they still are under that state mandate to achieve a certain amount of electrical production as renewable from renewable sources.
So the response
Number one.
Well, hang on. The response that was given around Mather Veterans Village is that they have reached it.
Okay, but all right.
But we might want to get some more information before we spend a bunch of time working on something that Nobody's
Okay,
going to do.
and believe me, if we could avoid working on this, that would be a lovely thing. But then number two, that probably doesn't keep anybody from wanting to potentially save money by going to solar as opposed to paying a normal electric rate.
The ROI is already like double what it is in the PG&E footprint.
Right.
Because
That's
of the
exactly
lower
right.
rates.
Yeah, I think that's what we've heard, that they're not going to receive or be eligible for the rebates the way SMUD had it, but it may make some sense to some businesses to lower their bills, and for that purpose only. But at the same time, it's a very capital-intensive program. They have to come up with a lot of money for it to make sense from the
So
get-go.
I've never understood around here where we have all these, pretty large footprint buildings, why aren't people using their rooftops the way franchise tax did back in 1998 or so?
Same issue. It costs a lot of money to put the systems on the roof, and the return on the investment is not attractive.
Yeah, a lot of people that I know that own solar installation companies and have sales reps tell them to stay out of the SMUD territory and to go spend their time because the rates are 30 or 40% higher outside of here than they are here. It's one of the selling points that Barry Broom has for the region is that we have very low cost energy. But yeah, one of the answers, and I take it back, it may not be that they completely eliminated the tax credit or the subsidies, but they're continuing to change them because SMUD has reached its goals and legislative requirements around solar.
And legislative requirements.
That was the response from one of the board members that gave a response to Mercy Housing about the fact that the program that they were relying on to put solar in phase 3 no longer exists. So we should just go a little slow with this and make sure that this is something that's still viable and worth our time to worry about. Because it's kind of the same idea that, Tesla was selling their cars for X because there's a tax credit. And this week, they've discounted it, $10,000 in the last 6 months because there's not going to be a tax credit anymore.
Believe me, that was a really nice thing.
Right. So, but it's kind of the same idea. There was a certain portion of this that SMUD just wrote you a check if you put this in. It's sounding like it's not going to be the case much longer, and it's not in some cases. So
Even with the check in my house's case, when we were rebuilding, it was a 17-year payback period to break even.
Yeah.
With the full subsidy, and that was assuming the panels would remain 100% functional, which they don't. Over time, they decline.
So we looked at it in a couple of developments that I was doing, and the subsidy was pretty decent because it was low-income housing. In the PG&E footprint, it was like 7 to 10 years return on investment. So 17 years here with relatively the same credit programs.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that double-edged sword. SMUD's great and they're reliable and they're not expensive, but it means that these other strategies like this and these other products that you want to put on your home or your business takes way longer to get your money back because you're not paying as much.
So, at SACOG, one of the things we've realized is once the state starts imposing requirements, they don't stop. They just up the ante. So what's likely to happen is it's great SMUD hit your challenge point. I don't know if it's 20% or whatever it was. But
It'll be 30% in 2 years.
yeah, there'll be state legislation and we'll just go to a higher number. Right. So this business might come back. I don't know that this is actually, looking at planning things over there is all that complicated to pursue. I guess I'd be looking at staff for that, but I think it might be worthwhile just given that one, and I have a question about that one installation that's really an eyesore. Would we have had the ability to regulate a state project?
No.
Right, they could have built the eyesore regardless of our opinion.
We tried working with them. We met with their representative to talk about our concerns about the landscaping. He took the information back to the state and they said thank you, but no thank you. So
well, I talked to Ken about it the other day, and he said, actually, what's her name in his office?
Yes.
Said they had applied for a landscape fund through GSA or something, which was dumb. And then Ken said, well, they're supposedly still working on it, but he was going to check, and I haven't heard.
Yes, we did reach out to his office, and they were kind enough to help and make some more contacts to hopefully get some landscaping. So we're still waiting to see if something does appear on that site, but we haven't heard anything either.
So,
I have a question about forget the SMUD reaching its goal and no rebates and everything. Isn't it still, or is it still worthwhile for the individuals in their homes to have the solar panels and is their electricity bill down even more because of SMUD? Is it worth their while? And is it worth the city's while to do more solar panels for our lights at night, for the street lights during the day? I don't know, is that worth our while to put in more solar panels because it'll be less money in the long run for the city to have to keep the lights going?
I think it ultimately comes down to the economics of it. At this point and at this rate, I think the rate of return that Councilmember Terry mentioned for SMUD, because of their lower rates, it takes a long time to realize the value of the investment. We have actually bought into SMUD's overall program. So we have bought the solar shares, meaning that 50% of our energy for this city hall and city facilities does come from the renewable source.
Which is one of the reasons they met their goals.
Right.
Was they were selling.
Yeah. So and I think, it also gives SMUD the ability to be more flexible in implementing the program and do it in places where they can get the highest value for their investment. So I think it's a very ingenious program, the way that SMUD has designed it. But if you ask today for us to invest in solar panels on this roof, I think it probably would not make financial sense. That the rates would not be reduced enough to get the value of the investment in a relatively short manner.
Another question on that is, aren't the solar panels lowering your footprint?
Your
that
carbon
everyone talks
footprint.
about on the
your carbon footprint.
yeah, carbon footprints. Is that still something that is good for the world, shall I say?
I think that the answer to that question is absolutely yes.
So, okay, I appreciate both comments from my colleagues. If we don't take action, then we really don't have a good answer for somebody who wants to pursue it. So I would be okay if we added design review and then went ahead and drafted something. And if we adopt something, then it's not that we're giving everybody permission to go out and apply for it, but when somebody does apply, if they decide to make that decision to go ahead and do it, we have a good, clear response to them. That would be my perspective.
There's clearly nothing wrong with having some policies and some procedures in place in case if we do have an applicant.
Right.
And what we are telling potential applicants now is that they have to meet their 50% shade calculation
Absolutely.
requirement. So we have had, that I can think of since I've been here, another scenario where somebody has met their 50%. They had extra shade calc, so they took that and converted a few spaces over to solar parking. So you could still potentially get them, and we can still require a design review in those cases. So if we had nothing, that's the course that we've been taking.
Good idea. So I don't know how you all want to deal with this. I mean, in terms of direction.
I think and Darcy, please feel free to expand on it. I think we're looking for some clear direction so we can develop some policies and procedures around this, that if or when we have an application, we know how to proceed and how to respond to potential
I
applicants.
think design review sounds like a great idea,
Yeah.
and none of these amendments look like a bad idea.
Right.
So
My only concern is wasting staff time on something that ostensibly is not going to happen nearly as often as we expect. But if.
Yeah, but
you-
if we
you
have-
thi- If you
If
think.
we have one more repeat.
Yeah, if you think that staff has the time to work on it, then fine. I'm fine.
Okay, so I will move that we direct staff to return with a potential code amendment that incorporates the items that they have here on items 1 through 5 and adds item 6, design review.
Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Thank you so much for the direction on that.
I'm sorry, could you call the roll?
We need
Maybe
Roll
a
call,
vote, yeah.
please.
Yeah.
Councilmember Budge,
Yes.
Councilmember Terry,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Sander,
Aye.
Mayor McGarvey.
Aye.
Thank you.
Final discussion item, really quickly, food and alcohol sales as an accessory use. A lot of times after the fact, hotels, motels, indoor entertainment, recreation uses come through wanting to add a small snack bar where they prepare packaged foods, easily reheated, or they have a small bar for their patrons or hotel guests. The code right now, it's very vague. It does not address these accessory uses. So oftentimes that leads to something not being permitted, or they have to go through a higher level accessory or discretionary process like a conditional use permit. So all that staff is asking at this point is that we clarify this process and that we allow food sales permitted by right as part of either the discretionary process for one of these places, sometimes they're permitted by right, and that alcohol sales, and this is on-site only, be permitted subject to approval of an administrative use permit. This still gives us the ability to place conditions. They have to meet findings. They're required to get an ABC license. If they do not adhere to that and we go through the correct process, we can revoke their administrative use permit. I have had some initial conversations with our folks at RCPD in terms of this on-site alcohol sales being handled through an administrative use permit, and they're supportive of that as long as they can still place their conditions of approval on them, which they can. So this is just a clarifying cleanup, but we did want to bring it to council because oftentimes alcohol sales, not so much food, can be a sensitive topic when we're talking about certain uses. So we're just looking for clarification to allow food and alcohol sales as an accessory use to a permitted use, one being permitted by right on the food and the alcohol sales requiring an AUP.
Personally, I didn't find anything in what you were, in the primary uses that you were talking about that would be a red flag.
Anything from you, Donald, or David?
I don't know. I don't see a great deal of risk in these uses. Discretionary permit, I guess, perhaps.
Is that what you're looking for on this?
Correct. A lot of these uses, like the hotel, motels, indoor recreation and entertainment, in some zones they're permitted by right. In some they already require discretionary permits. So we're just trying to clarify to carry that process through, because sometimes they don't want to do it until after the fact and they're open and operating, and then they want to come back around. So we need to be able to tell them what path to go down.
We don't want, full liquor stores operating in these venues, obviously.
Correct.
But incidental, half or third bottle wine sales in a hotel.
Yeah.
Especially in a wine region.
Right, and a lot of our hotels are getting, what we're seeing is they're getting the type of ABC license that only allows on-site sales to their hotel guests.
Right.
So that's easily manageable through their license.
That's good.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second.
I'll move approval of whatever it is we just did.
Second.
I just second whatever it was too. Yes.
Direction? Is that what we just did? Okay.
That'd be direction.
Roll call.
Councilmember Budge,
Yes.
Councilmember Terry.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Sander.
Aye.
Mayor McGarvey.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, so item 16.
Presentation by the city attorney summarizing relevant new legislation.
Thank you, Mayor, council members, staff, and members of the community, and thank you for Trevor Taniguchi from my office for helping me with this presentation. We try to give staff and council a regular updates of new laws. We had a busy couple of months, so we moved this item around a couple of times, and still thought that it would be worthwhile to talk to you about and summarize a few of the major changes that have gone into effect on new state laws that we're in the process of complying with, one or two of which you've actually touched upon one way or another this evening already. So with that, we've given you about a 10-page staff report that summarizes the couple of dozen laws that we think are of most keen interest to you and staff this year. I think I'd like Trevor and I to spend, with your permission, we have a closed session to do later this evening, but I think we might spend 5 or 10 minutes just highlighting about 5 or 10 of those few dozen laws, just so that you can think about them and the community can also be informed.
Thank you. Please.
So we'll kick it off with a couple California Public Records Act cases that Trevor will talk to you about.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. The first two laws we're going to go over are regarding peace officer records. So previously, before these laws were enacted, police officer personnel records were confidential, and gaining access to those records required court action. So the first law we'd like to bring your attention to is AB 748. Beginning July 1st of this year, 2019, audio and video recordings regarding critical events, which involves officer-involved shootings, officer involving great bodily injury or death, sustained findings of dishonesty or sexual misconduct, will be available to members of the public through the Public Records Act, subsequent to if the city or a police agency makes a 45-day justification for withholding the record. I should mention, as I forgot to, that the Rancho Cordova Police Department's PRA requests for their peace officers are handled by the Sacramento Sheriff's Office. So while the city isn't directly involved in processing those requests for police personnel records, we nevertheless feel that these are two seminal laws in regards to the California Public Records Act. The second law is SB 1421. I'm sure many of you have seen this in the news recently. It is currently involved in heavy litigation throughout the state. But what this has done is made what our office calls decisional documents. So a lot of times internal affairs, investigation files, which were never subject to public disclosure, either through court order or the Public Records Act, are now, as they pertain to critical events, as I mentioned earlier, officer-involved shooting, officers involved in great bodily injury or death, sustained findings of dishonesty and sexual assault, are now subject to the California Public Records Act, subject to specific exemptions. So those are two key important laws regarding the California Public Records Act as they pertain to peace officers.
And as Trevor said, cities around the state are wrestling with and preparing for the implementation of those two new laws. Skipping ahead a bit to the bottom of page 2 and the top of page 3, the next that we would highlight are with respect to salary history. Existing law has provided a number of limitations on the kinds of questions that agencies can ask about salary history, and a new law, AB 2282, to some extent rolls back and clarifies recently enacted law, and it states that an employer can make compensation decisions based upon a current employee's existing salary if the differential resulting from that comp is justified, and there are specifies certain limitations on asking the applicant about prior salary history if it doesn't, but it doesn't forbid an employer from asking about his or her salary expectations. So kind of a clarification and arguably a bit of a rollback from the changes that had occurred just recently. In addition, rolling ahead to item number E On criminal history, SB 1412 requires that employers only consider convictions relevant under limited circumstances to jobs which they're applying for when screening job applicants. So there are significant limitations on our ability to probe into in criminal history and background checks. Continuing on into kind of the area of building and planning, there have been a number of changes, not surprisingly, following some of the issues that the state has had with fire and climate change. The existing law requires that the draft safety element that cities' general plans have be submitted to the state board every year, and local agencies that provide fire protection to the city. This law requires that a city that has fire state responsibility areas and high fire severity areas notify the state of those particular amendments. The good news is this particular one has zones that we do not have, but it's an indication that we probably expect to see more state laws like this that kind of deal with the risks of fire hazards and fire issues. We talked about it a little bit because while we're not within any one of these zones, we do have grass fires and other areas and other issues that are potentially of concern to us. So we'll be tracking fire protection, fire safety issues fairly closely going forward. Moving ahead quickly to page 4, on general plans, the safety elements under SB 103 are required to identify new information on fire hazards, flood hazards, and climate adoption. You'll recall that up until pretty recently, housing elements were really the only things that had to be updated on sort of a 5-year cycle. State laws really added to those sets of issues these additional topics that require revisions to occur on each revision to the housing element. So you're seeing this idea that where there's critical issues, there may be more frequent requirements to update the general plan laws. So this adds significant new responsibilities to planning departments and other departments. Probably a tactic that we'll see used in other areas as we have additional state, high-profile state issues. Fast forwarding quite a bit to page, probably all the way down to page 7, under housing and community economic development. This is actually an area of keen interest to the council. AB 2035 authorized cities and counties to create affordable housing authorities to fund housing projects using tax increment funding and bonds. This new law expanded the list of projects that an affordable housing authority can fund to specifically include emergency shelters and transitional housing. Again, one of a series of changes that attempt to address California's homelessness and housing crisis. This is potentially an important tool that many cities are looking closely at.
But can I ask a question?
Sure.
Where is the tax increment financing supposed to be coming from?
It is my understanding is that it's traditional tax increment funding that would come from the tax, just like redevelopment tax increment was done, I believe. Happy to look into that for you if you'd like.
Well, since tax increment financing theoretically went the way of the redevelopment agencies, it would be interesting to know what mechanism we're supposed to use in order to collect it again.
This was intended as a form of a post-redevelopment solution to some of these housing issues.
Well, sure, but what's the process?
So if you're interested, we'll be happy to
I'd love
follow
to
up.
know.
If the state can take it away, they can restore it too.
But this, I mean, at least the summary of this bill, and I gotta go back and look at it, but it says that it expands the number of projects an affordable housing authority may fund to include emergency shelter and transitional housing. But to her point, or to Linda's point, it doesn't identify a funding mechanism for it.
Oh.
The prior law that created the 2008 18 legislation that created the housing authorities, I think, I mean, it.
Well, housing
did-
authorities exist. I mean, SHRA is our housing authority, right? Okay, just if, maybe look into it a little bit more and expand on this description.
Yeah.
Great.
This one was not on my radar.
We
I
do
didn't
this to
notice
see
this
what
in the
would
past.
pique your interest, so this is
Yeah.
terrific.
I didn't
Yeah.
get it.
It's great to get some questions and for potential follow-up.
Actually, Council, I think Michael Runner may have some insight on this that he could share.
He just had to come sit up here at least once tonight.
Couldn't get away with just talking once, right?
Right.
So from my knowledge, this is really about the Community Reinvestment Act and EIFDs that were funded to do affordable housing. This is basically allowing for additional
EIFD is
uses.
what?
EIFD, Enhanced Financing Districts.
Oh, it's-
And
okay.
Community Reinvestment Funds, and it's really the city's own tax increment. So this is not layering in other folks' tax increment. This is really if we decide as the city to do tax increment financing using our own tax increment, not anybody else's. So it's not really redevelopment in that sense. It's really just our own.
But we're not a housing agency. Can we establish our own to do that?
Well,
Is that what you're saying?
so for some of these, it's about the different vehicles by doing Community Reinvestment Act. It's basically, there's certain uses that you can use those different tax increment districts for.
But do we have to found our own housing district or a housing authority to do
I don't
that?
think it's not also to do with housing authority, but it's, you can do affordable housing projects with these funds. And I think they're allowing for additional uses like transitional housing agencies and things to be able to utilize those funds, which they didn't before.
Okay.
So,
Because HUD doesn't fund them then,
No.
but they put them on the list anyways.
so it sounds like it still might be something we should look into.
Yeah.
Sounds like redevelopment anyway.
Yeah, it's just a matter of what is going to be increment from our own property tax growth. The reason why redevelopment was so attractive is because you're using all the different agencies' increment growth in order to do investment. And so when we're only talking about our own investment growth, we actually can choose to do whatever we want with our own property tax growth without instituting these programs.
Yes, and I think it's clearly a policy issue because the reason we haven't chosen to go that way, then because we have that flexibility now. So the question is, why do you want to do it? And unless you really want to establish a goal and a purpose.
Okay. Well, and our property tax increment is so limited by,
Yeah, but of what is our own, we could carve out a section of it. That's basically what the EIFDs do for you, for a specific purpose.
okay.
Another law that is also probably in Mr. Runner's wheelhouse is on density bonus applications. AB 2753 requires the density bonus to be deemed complete and a determination made in relatively short order. And its intent was to expedite and facilitate the processing and use of density bonus laws. We've seen a number of these changes in relatively recent years to facilitate and improve the use of density bonuses. Moving on into the home stretch here, item E on page 8 on cannabis enforcement. This is AB 2164 is essentially good news for illegal cannabis code enforcement efforts. It allows cities to impose immediate administrative fines, and it addresses one interpretation by a court that there was a requirement to wait a reasonable period of time for administrative fines and penalties for these sorts of building code violations. And it clarifies that you can immediately impose them. Moving on to item F, AB 2598, also relating to code enforcement fines, is good news. It substantially increases the amount of fines that cities can levy, particularly for the second and third violations, really ratcheting it up by many times larger. So we'll be looking closely at that as an additional tool for enforcement activities. And one of the potentially more significant things that that was adopted, in my opinion, is AB 2162 at the bottom of page 8 on supportive housing. You'll require that there are a number of places in land use where the state has kind of carved out that there are uses by right. You know, you see these small residential care facilities, you see some of these other things that have come before us. Arguably, some of the conversations we've had about some of the preempted uses like clinics of certain types. This law similarly requires that supportive housing be a use by right in zones where multiple family and mixed uses are permitted if the development satisfies certain specific conditions. So this is a place where the planning department could have its ability and options quite constrained. This is another law that also has parking limits within, it's the one that says no parking limits within a half mile of public transit stops for certain kinds of uses. So this is one of the places where we see, as we briefly discussed in the workshop, significant restrictions on cities' parking authority starting to be more of a theme that we're seeing in some of these new state laws.
How are they defining supportive housing?
I'd be happy to double back with you for that one. And finally, we just talked about solar. There is a change that says electric charging stations and the applications for installation for them. A bunch of laws that are quite permissive about that include charging not only for partially for full electric, but also for electric hybrid cars. So we'll see continuing various laws relating to electrical vehicle charging and permits for solar and permits for cars and that sort of thing. That concludes our whirlwind tour of a very active year by the California State Assembly and Legislature. And we appreciate the continuing on. We'll be working with staff to make sure that a number of these laws that require implementation this year get our full attention.
Do you have any whirlwind questions? No, okay.
Thank you again, Trevor.
Thank you very much. Information only. It's on to 17, council requests for future agenda items. Seeing none, then I'm going to adjourn and go into a closed session. Thank you very much. Yes?
I would actually like to adjourn this meeting in memory of a gentleman named Ken Willis, Willes.
Okay.
18 months ago, I think it was, the city provided a brick for him at Mather. He was a veteran. Ken was a member of the Greatest Generation. He actually was also a member of my dad's bomb group. And which is how I met him originally. And he was a very long time member, maybe the 40 years of its existence of the live steamers. And about 4 weeks ago, I'm thinking, he passed away.
I didn't know that. Thank you for that information. And yes, we are closing in honor of Mr. Willis, veteran and quite a citizen. Thank you.